You ever have like an epiphany, but not like world changing, because you're a high school social studies teacher and life moves on without you. But I had a moment of clarity yesterday when I'm thinking about analysis of sources, because that's what I do in my free time. I think about the writing assignments because that's my hobby. That's my lust, my love, my passion, my hunger is for writing. So, I want to make sure that we understand the process. So what I've done is I've gone back and I have all of the sample questions that have been on the previous diploma exams that are economic based. And there's 13 of them here. And again, like I said in seminar, I think you can see a pattern. That typically they're going to present a problem, and either they will explicitly state a solution, or based upon their language we can infer a solution. That's a key part of unpacking a source. So what we did in seminar today is we unpacked the first one, and we unpacked the second one. And then I started in my 10-2 class, I unpacked the third one, and I realized while I was unpacking the third one, it's the same as the first one. It's really the same essay. So going back to all of these prompts, I want to make sure that you can understand the pattern that we're seeing, and once you see a pattern, then you can prepare for it. So the first sample says the path to economic growth is not engineered by the government, rather the path to economic prosperity is built by the people. The third one says society achieves its finest expression through self-interest and freedom of individuals. When we adopt these principles, we will lessen the need for government to interfere in our lives. So similar is sample 1 and sample 3 that you could use this as a response to that, or you could use this as a response to that. This could be your thesis here, or this could have been your thesis there. You're basically writing the same essay. Now, when I'm analyzing the source, if I'm analyzing source 1, sample 1, I'm going to need to unpack the term economic growth. And I might need to unpack the idea of prosperity and engineered. Whereas in sample 3, I'm going to have to unpack the idea of self-interest, or freedom, or interference. So there are key terms that we want to make sure that we are showing that we're analyzing the specific big rocks on the page, but the general theme here is the same. The general theme of all of these samples are the same. And the question is, tell me, what is the ideal economic system? And I think that we can build an essay in advance to this. That often I find myself using the same thesis statement. Although this, but also this, therefore this. And in my body, I'm going to have a section where I say, this is what works about capitalism. But there's also things that don't work. This is what works about centrally planned economics. But there's also things that don't work. This is the ideal hybrid, the ideal mix. So I do believe that in anticipation for whatever source I choose to give you on Thursday, you can prepare for it. And even more importantly than Thursday, I think that before you write the body, even if you didn't know the source, you could pre-write the body in your mind. And you can do this to some extent in June. I don't want you to have a canned essay, although it sounds like I'm saying can an essay. What I'm saying is you can prepare for an essay. There's still going to be something new, some language that you're going to have to unpack, but the theme is the same. What is the economic system you want? So what have we studied? How does capitalism work? You should be able to write a paragraph on that. Why doesn't it work? You should be able to write a paragraph on that. We haven't really studied chapter 5 yet, so we haven't gone into great detail about how Stalin works and how Stalinism didn't work. So really, the only fair essay I can give you right now is what works about capitalism, what doesn't work, and what kind of a mix should we have, looking at the Canadian hybrid example or Sweden. That would be what's fair. So looking at sample 3, we go through those steps again. Identify the theme. I copied and pasted that. somewhere in my analysis, I might have a sentence early on about how the source is pontificating, because that's a $5 word. Oh, $10, inflation. The source is pontificating about the ideal economic relationship between the government and the people. You can probably word it better than that, but something like that fits into every economic essay. Identify key terms. So I went through here and I bolded the key terms. On Thursday, you can bring a highlighter, or you could bold them yourself. The key terms are finest expression, self-interest, freedom, and this idea of lessen the need for government to interfere in our lives. And I remember when this was on the diploma exam, the E students looked at that and they realized that the source isn't saying no government, it's just saying less government. It doesn't say, when we adopt these principles, we will eliminate the need for government to interfere in our lives. No, it says lessen the need. So that's a nuance, that's a precision that E students saw that the PF students didn't. So that's why you have to, early in your essay, pause, read what's on the page. And when you read what's on the page, you unpack the key terms. And if there's some key terms you don't know, you get to use the dictionary, look them up. So here are the key terms: finest expression, self-interest, freedom, lessen the need for government to interfere in our lives. Sometimes a term might be a phrase. Often, the language used might be a little bit vague, right? It's vague so that there's some nuances available within the source. When it says society achieves its finest expression, it doesn't really define what that means. The term finest expression is subject to some controversy. If you ask Stalin, the finest expression, that's through rapid industrialization. It's through sponsoring a worldwide revolution of workers. If you ask a capitalist what finest expression is, it might be having a Porsche 911. It might be owning an island. It might be wealth. If you ask a Buddhist monk the finest expression of one's life, it might be living a good life through service to others. So there might be some language within the source that in and of itself is controversial in nature, subject to interpretation. And if you can, in your analysis, state that some of the key terms used within the source are vague enough to be subject to interpretation, and it's significant to say who defines it, then you're elevating your analysis. Always identify the goal of the source. What are they trying to accomplish? And often there's a problem in the way of the goal. Then what is the significance of overcoming this problem? If left unaddressed, if we do not achieve our finest expression, then we do not have our best lives. We have not lived our best lives. At a physiological level, this might mean being hungry and homeless. I'm thinking of Maslow's hierarchy. And at maybe a higher level, this would be feeling less than actualized. Is there some evidence to further the perspective? The statement could be a response to that, to what the voice behind the source sees as government interference. What would have inspired the source? The source might be inspired by government regulation that's getting in the way of business. Regulation like the SEC. Regulation like the Frank-Dodd Act or the Glass-Steagall Act. So once we have used a little bit of evidence to further the perspective, I don't write a page on the Glass-Steagall Act. I might say, this could be a reference to government regulation like the Glass-Steagall Act. That could be seen as a senseless burden or obstacles. I might go into more detail about Glass-Steagall in the body, but for the analysis, I've done my job. I've linked it to some possible inspiration, context. That's it. Identify the solution. The ideological perspective of the source is therefore a rejection of some government interference. Interesting to note, doesn't say eliminate it. So therefore, we can label this as being a rejection of some Keynesian involvement, but not a clear desire to return all the way back to complete laissez-faire economics. So there's nuances of Keynesian economics still there, and nuances of neoclassical liberalism. this ideology is to the right of center, but not as far as Milton Friedman, because it says lessen the need for interference, but doesn't say eliminate. So if this was your essay on Thursday, we'd want you to really get into, what elements of the economy warrant government intervention. I created that Prezi after this was on the diploma exam as a response to this, saying if my students see a similar essay in the future, what knowledge would they need to have to write a brilliant essay? And that Prezi was it. So what I'd like you to do, I've shared this document with you. I'd like you to go through, I've done the first 3 samples. I'd like you to go through some of the next samples and see if you can go through the steps. And as you go through them, I'm going to check in with you, see if you understand how to analyze the source. Then maybe we'll pick one to talk about, and then we'll move past analyzing sources, and we'll give you some time to study for the multiple choice. I'm getting the impression we're ready to analyze the source on Thursday. Now, it gives you the advantage of a weekend to really think about an essay. It's not ideal for me as a marker. I think that's going to create essays that are a little bit better than they should be. But if that makes you stronger at the end of the course, then I'm in favor of it. So, what should we do now? I've shared this document with you. I have outlined the first 3. Pick 1 or 2 of the next 10, and by yourself in small groups, also do the same steps. See if there's anyone that you'd be like, if this was the essay on Thursday, I don't know what to do here. And if you have one like that, call me over, because when I make the essay prompt for Thursday, I'm just going to look at these 13 and I'm going to change the words around a little bit. It's going to be the same stuff. All right, so let's work on that.